Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Thoughts and Coffee with Let's Talk Supply Chain. I'm back in my apartment. I'm covering for Sarah as she is traveling in the UK. So welcome to everybody. I'm looking forward to seeing where everyone's from as we kick off here. So my name is Audrey Ross. I'm here in Toronto. I am a logistics and customs specialist in-house at Orchard Custom Beauty, which is a business-to-business private labeling company that specializes in cosmetics and beauty tools and bath accessories. So I do, right now we're running sort of international trade in about, 12 to 15 countries in the globe. So it keeps it interesting for me, for all of you in the supply chain community. You know what it's like in shipping right now. So let's start with, we have some news and updates from Let's Talk Supply Chain. So we have the episode of the week from last week was, of course, the Women in Supply Chain podcast and blog. So if you haven't checked that out, that's episode 212 or 212 with Ana Lucia Alonso, and she's with Starbucks. So there's lots of interesting tidbits about personal development and professional development and growth in that one. So it's a can't miss. On Friday, August 3rd, I think it was, we did the first episode of LogTech Live, which is a new live show with Let's Talk Supply Chain, hosted by Eric Johnson. Now, on Friday, he spoke with Rachel Premack, and they had a great conversation about, both of them are sort of journalists sort of covering this field. And so it was a nice sort of bird's eye view of the tech space in logistics. So that you can catch the replay, of course, and then tune in the first Friday of every month for that episode, those episodes. That's the other thing you want to watch out for is Let's Talk Supply Chain Asia Pack. So head over and follow Let's Talk Supply Chain Asia Pack. We'll drop the link so you can do that. We want to get, obviously as many followers as possible, but let's get us to 100 this week and give some love to Jonathan Kempe, who's leading that up. So I can't really see some of, if you are commenting, I can't quite see it. So hopefully you are, and we are live on all these channels. But if we're not, we'll just keep going. So I'd like to bring out my guest for today, which is so exciting for me because I am very lucky in this world to have not one, but two trade besties. That's, people that I've met through the Forum for International Trade Training. Back in the day, we won't go into how long ago, but I've got my trade bestie, Emiliano Introcaso here. And so I'm going to bring him up and he's going to introduce himself and then we'll get rolling into our articles. Here we go. Welcome, hey, Emiliano.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. A little nervous. It's my third time doing the show by myself, but I still get a little nervous. So
you're doing great so far. So thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are.
So I'm in Toronto, and I've been in the industry for 20 plus years now. I started really young, and I am one of the international business advisors at Export Development Canada, and I also teach supply chain courses at Seneca College. And like you said, I'm also a CATP, a Certified International Trade Professional through the Forum for International Trade Training, which is where we met, and I also met Sarah there too. So happy to be here.
Yeah, welcome. So let's go into, each week we do, Let's Talk Supply Chain does a question of the week. And so that's every Wednesday, and we preview it here on Tuesday's episode of Thoughts and Coffee. But it's an interesting one. It's a hot topic. We've seen some really sort of dire situations throughout the supply chain community with this. So with many companies increasingly reliant on digital tech logistics, what is your cybersecurity policy? So you might not have a cybersecurity policy, but what are your thoughts on kind of the importance of having a cybersecurity policy, or at least talking to employees about it?
Yes, I think, I mean, every company has throughout the years, right? Because at the beginning, people were just like writing passwords on sticky notes and pasting them on their monitors, right? But eventually, I think things had changed. And, we fast forward to 2021, and now we have to use, different devices to sometimes log in and use your passwords. So cybersecurity has been, I think, from the internal side of business, but also the external, right? So there's even more security in other uh, platforms. Like, for example, like now when you go into Amazon or like my web banking, it asks you for like double two-step verification codes,
Yeah.
which sometimes it can be annoying, but at the same time is, this is actually safeguarding my data, safeguarding Amazon's data as well, or the bank's right data. So it's very important that we do follow that. And I think the most important thing is the training portion of it. Like, as soon as companies start doing that training, then they make employees more aware, and then they also explain why they need the training and why you need to be super aware of the different, potential security issues, right? That cyber attacks are happening constantly now. So
Yeah. And they're very sophisticated. Um, they're very sophisticated. It's, we can get something that seems like it's from our CEO, Jennifer, and you're like, oh, I have to do that because it's from our CEO. And then you're like, wait a second, something's not quite right. Either there's one detail off in the address or something about it. And you just, you kind of give her a ring and you're like, Jen, did you send this to me? Like, what is this? And then it's like, no, I didn't want you to transfer $50,000 randomly. Like, no, don't
right.
do that. So I did see a study in the UK that said 31% of employees like aren't trained or aren't given any details on cybersecurity info at their company. And I also had seen a study that said if you are, the more employees have at least a basic overview or basic training, I think it increases your cybersecurity protection by like over 50%. So even just
Right.
running through having, maybe IT isn't the best to explain everything, but having someone explain some of the most common ones at least gives employees a bit of knowledge so that they can see what they're looking for. I found it's kind of those like the wonky address or like, kind of the wrong, if there's a bunch of links in it that you're like, oh, that's weird that they're sending me 4 links or something. But
Yeah, actually, our IT department does that. They send some, like, I guess, test to see if people
to
click on the
kind of,
links or not. Yeah. So, and they ask us always to refer them to a specific email address where we can report.
yeah.
And yeah, sometimes, I have to be honest, like there has been one or few times where it's really, really, really difficult to tell if it is a real email from a company or not. So, they sometimes mask, the links in a way that you can't really tell. So it's quite interesting how the cybersecurity attacks are happening, and it's just, somebody just click a link and that's it.
And then it's over. It's like now you're
Hmm.
infected. That's it. Oh my gosh. And it can have such an impact. I mean, I saw last December, one of the carriers I work with, we were expecting a delivery of, like an air shipment coming up from the US. And it was like the whole company's system was down. So they couldn't track where anything was. They couldn't tell you where their airship, like they're like, and I'm not the only air shipment that they're running, of course. So, they have 3,000 shipments and it's like they're blind, because they can't access any of it. So looks like Rhonda here, who's she's a community member of the month. But she agrees. It's like they have the monthly training about the different threats and they have the testing, so that, information always helps for people.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's amazing how sophisticated they've gotten and how, it's just something that every day it's a new kind of type or threat. So.
Yeah, actually, a few weeks ago, I got an email from my bank. The thing is, I only have one email address that nobody in the world has except for me and the bank. So I
Oh
know that
wow,
if it
that's
doesn't
super
come through
secure.
that email, yeah, it's super secure for me.
Yeah.
However, the email was quite interesting to read because, they happened to guess which bank institution I was dealing with. So it made
Wow.
me realize, like, it made me read it twice, right? So I know that as soon as it came through one of my emails, it was not,
Yeah.
but still, it was quite difficult to tell.
Yeah.
And if I am, aware of it, and couldn't almost tell. Imagine somebody that is just not having the training or not even aware
Yeah.
that these things could happen. So it's
Yeah.
important.
Or like overtired or busy, or you're just
Hmm.
kind of, yeah. Oh, it's definitely a hot topic. So I can't wait to see everyone's answers tomorrow when the question goes up. So let's go into the thoughts and coffee post. So thoughts and coffee post is a post that Sarah does every Sunday. Has a cup of coffee and kind of jots down her thoughts on LinkedIn and shares them with us. So let's look at that here. So she's asking, are you finding it hard to stay motivated? So as much as we love our jobs, she finds herself occasionally experiencing sort of burnout and sort of fatigue. And, it can be overwhelming doing that juggling between work and family, social life, trying to be active, doing self-care. And so one of the things she says is that motivates her to continue pushing is knowing that her hard work has paid off in the past, and that it's thinking of the future self, and that it will continue to pay off in the future. So for her, she finds motivation through accepting help from friends, focusing on why the work matters to her, rearranging the workspace, creating a to-do list for the day. And so she's asking us how we stay motivated. So Emiliano, I'll start with you. How do you stay motivated?
Nice way to put me in the spot there. But the way I stay motivated is always knowing that there is the light at the end of the tunnel. So if you're, tackling a week where there's so much to do, you know that at the end, hopefully it's gonna everything get done, right? So, but other things to get motivated, I think if you're very tired or very, because most of us are working from home nowadays, like, you could just take a stretch, use that 20 20 20. I think it was 20 minutes
Oh yeah.
for 20 seconds, right? To not look at the screen for 20 seconds, and then maybe take at some time during the day a 20-minute walk. This way kind of helps you refresh. I usually try to do my walk right after lunch, so
Yeah.
that you get refreshed. You just like come back to your desk with more air in your system, and to stay motivated. I think that's one of the keys. Like, you have to find what motivates you, right? Like, my motivation might not be someone else's motivation. So,
Yes.
but I can agree with Sarah there. Like, there's some things you could do. Like, if your office is kind of like, unorganized, just organizing that and focusing on the organization of the office might take your mind away. When you come back to your desk and start working again, you have fresh ideas. You have maybe something. I can't remember where I read it, but they were saying if there's something you're stuck doing, just try to do some mini task that actually gives you like instant gratification, and then go back. And they were saying, like, just go brush your teeth. Just
Yeah.
that apparently gives you that push. And I think it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like you've given yourself something, you're like, oh, like it feels like a little accomplishment. And then now that I'm feeling like accomplished, then I can tackle that harder task.
Yeah. Sometimes what I do is I try to do like some of the easy, fast things I could do. I
Yeah.
do those two,
Check
and
those
that kind
off.
of gives me that push to then tackle something that was more complex.
Yeah. I think I do that too, where it's like I'm seeing something that's like a bigger answer or a bigger project, and I was like, gosh, I'm not even sure how I'm going to tackle this. I'll go get a cup of coffee, I come back, and I'll see that there's like five small things, and I'm like,
Hmm.
let me whip through these five small things, and then I'll kind of go and break down. And it builds up that, I don't know if it's building like a resilience or building up the practice, but it's like then it's easier to dive through. So,
Yeah, I was preparing like my class like on the weekend for Monday, and then when you're preparing some slides and some content, that probably is the thing that takes the most. But I thought, okay, you know what? I'm gonna look for the videos that I wanted to publish, and I put them on the actual website for the class. And then after that, I was able to say, okay, so basing on my content on this particular videos and supply chain, I'm gonna just rearrange that. So it really worked out really well. So again, like maybe taking a smaller task first
yeah.
may pay off in the long run for that motivation.
Yeah. I think what resonated for me too is the burnout piece. And one of the first things Sarah said was like accepting help from friends. And I certainly struggle with, I really get into my own bubble, and I just sort of keep going. And I found I was getting quite stressed last week, and just, we've got a lot on the go. And just I asked my boss for, just a quick chat and just kind of regrouping with someone else. Depending on what work you're doing, maybe you work with, people work with multi teams, but, some of the work I do can be a bit solo, and just checking in with someone and having the conversation. But I felt so much better afterwards. And I was really able to kind of go through my list and reprioritize. And then there was things where she's like, oh, why don't you ask so-and-so to cover this instead of you doing it, or maybe somebody else can help, or I'll take this on, right? And I think, I definitely get caught up in doing things on my own, or trying to juggle everything. And it's like, as soon as I connect with someone else, either just to regroup and chat or to try and help with delegation, then, everything gets better. So,
Yeah.
use our colleagues and friends wisely, right?
Sometimes our friends cannot do our jobs, though.
That's true. They're like, what is a container?
FCA?
Yeah.
What is that?
Why do you do this job? What is supply chain? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's true. So that's thoughts on coffee. So that's a good one. And I think, I see Rhonda's got a good comment too about, reminding yourself of the gratitude of just like, changing up the words sometimes. Like, I get to do this, not I have to do this. That also helps me. So, all right, let's jump into our articles before Peter Bowl tells us that we're running out of time. But our first article up is the pandemic pushed fashion brands to prioritize supplier relations in the quest for agility. And so the article kind of goes through this is kind of looking at fashion brands who are consolidating their sourcing base, focusing on strengthening relationships with key suppliers as they're trying to become more agile, since we've seen all of these demand shifts, especially over the last year. And so right now, they're saying out of 31 fashion industry executives who were surveyed, almost 37% say they source from more than 10 countries or regions. And that it sort of seems that that's a reduction. So maybe they used to be doing 15 plus countries, and now they're sort of tightening it up. So there's some great stats, and I am supposed to be sharing this article. Oh yeah, okay, good. Thanks, AJ. So there's some great graphs here that gives you the feedback on these surveys to see what, sort of executives are highlighting as the most important thing. So Emiliano, what do you think about supplier relationships and their importance? I'm sure that's something that you talk about with your students.
Yes, and actually, when I was, in the industry doing the actual work and making sure that my clients were happy, I could see that themselves. They try to establish a really good relationship with your supplier because they know that at some point they are going to need a favor from you, and if you have already built that trust and that relationship from the get-go, it's a lot easier. But yeah, when you look at the textbook definitions of supplier relationships and how you manage them, it really sometimes is not the exact reality of what it's the real world in that relationship. So I feel like when students are asking me, well, how do you go from 50 suppliers to 10? Well, maybe you have to look at their scorecards. You have to look at how many years you've been doing business with. You have to see also what kind of collaboration, which is Sarah's favorite word, right?
Yes.
In terms of that you get from that relationship, because in many cases there are not there's going to be some suppliers that they're just supplying you goods and they're not really helping your company grow, and there could be some suppliers that even if they're a little bit more expensive, but if they're helping you commit to your own clients, right, that relationship is probably more valuable. And I will say, like in many cases, in the past used to be like, how much can I, extract from this supplier? Like, I want to make sure that I don't give them any profit, or like reduce my profit so that I can make my books look better, or my information for my investors, let's say, look better. But that's not the way to do business. I think both companies should be making the money, and that makes them both sustainable, right? You can't just like make one sustainable because the other one is going to go out of business. So I
Yes.
think that's the type of relationship you want to foster.
Yes.
And even if it is a little bit more expensive, I feel like in my own life, I've gotten to some relationship with like some service providers that I use or something might be a little bit more expensive, but I know that if I pick up the phone or if I have a complaint, like they'll act on it right away. So that is sometimes worth the price.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're seeing that shift away from, maybe because, like we grew up in this 80s power business culture of like compete and take over and dominate. And I think coming through sort of the last 10 years, and especially maybe through the pandemic, we're seeing more of like, wait a second, like we're all in this together. There's lots of space for us to coexist. And in some cases, not only coexist, but collaborate directly. Like, let's share our resources. When we see these container shortages, it's like, at this point, trying to get goods across, like if a competitor was like, I have 15 CBM in a container, do you want it? I'd be like, yes, like you're my new friend, So I think it's an interesting shift through now to this collaborative and more community based relationships, and long term too. I think I've always worked in for a company that believes in like long term relationships, where it's like things might go wrong, there might be an issue, but we're going to work through it together and grow together so that next time we're prepared or we can overcome it. So
yeah, and I like Rhonda's comment there because it's true, and it's also true also with your own friends. You could really see who were those real trustable friends in the last 18 months. So good post there, Rhonda.
yeah, I like that one. All right, so that's fashion. Now let's move on to a very sort of controversial topic, Excel spreadsheets. So we've got Let's Talk Supply Chain did a post on who doesn't love a good Excel sheet. And what's your go-to software for running your supply chain if you're not building it on Excel? So we've got this great meme from the movie The Office. If you could just stop using Excel to run your supply chain, that would be great. And we have so many people. We had over 300 comments. Like over 3,000 people were looking at this post. Like the impressions are crazy because it's something I think all of us have, when we started our workplace journeys, like we all used Excel at some point, if we're not still using it now. And there are a number of comments here, on how people hate it, they love it, what do we do? So what do you think about Excel?
Okay, this is super controversial, and I understand why. However, I think we in supply chain have to blame ourselves. And I know that somebody's not going to like what I'm going to say, but Excel has been sort of the de facto link between maybe my system and your system. Yeah. So that's one of the issues, right? So if both parties are not investing in like some sort of software or maybe like EDI technology where I can send you an order through EDI and then I don't have to maybe put it on an Excel sheet or I don't have to track the information through that, then that will make everybody's life a lot easier. So yes, if you want to stay away from Excel, great. Well, what are you going to invest? You have to invest. Which software do you choose? Because there's many now, right? Are you going to be looking at maybe your book of clients and survey them and see what they're using, to see if that's the best way for you to approach your removal of yourself from Excel? I remember when we were working, we had to share some of our inventory with our clients, and the way that we were doing it, we didn't have EDI at that time, so we would have to download the information from our ERP system, then put it on an Excel sheet in a way that when we will upload it to our client's system, which was a very, very old system, they were able to see the inventory that they were going to order that day. So for us, Excel was our savior because our customer didn't want to really invest, even though we had a really good software. to manage the company. So Excel is sometimes the link that you need. And if your business can run on Excel, I mean, why not use it, right? That's almost free. Is sort
Yeah.
of the de facto link to anybody that is going to ask you for that. But I know that Microsoft has been really working on this tool called Power BI, I think,
Okay.
and that can read different Excel sheets, and you can make it in a way that the information presented maybe to your customer is a lot easier, and
Yeah.
people can get some access that is limited, so they can modify things, but they can see it. So yeah, I knew it was going to be very controversial to have that post in there, but when I was doing some stuff in Excel, the thing what happens is sometimes you want to do it in Excel because it does it the way you want it, and sometimes the software doesn't do it. I know that in supply
That's
chain
true.
might not be the case because if you have EDI or if you have good strong software, then that's not needed anymore. But even in your daily lives, right? Like sometimes you
Yeah.
have to do it in Excel because I'm not gonna buy a software just for this or another software for that, right? Sometimes Excel just does it.
Yeah.
So if you're happy with Excel, continue.
Yeah.
If you're not, then invest. That's my reply to this post.
It's such a hot topic, but it's like it's the thing that we all use. So this was the article that sort of spurred on this whole conversation. So it's a nice one from the Hustle if people want to check out the article. But it's true. I mean, and I think we talk about. I know Eric Johnson who talks a lot about the log tech space. It's for most of us, the Microsoft Suite or Excel is something that it's just a common denominator. It's a common software for us to use. And some of the new technologies are really great, but it's hard, I think, maybe it's just me, but it's hard for me to see how it fits or if I learn this software, what are my customers using? And it's like, with cell phones and social media, we all use kind of the same platforms in a lot of ways. And I think that's where we're kind of tied to the familiar with Excel. But we'll see. Like a lot of people are recommending the same kind of like, oh, if Power BI, it's like that's what, half of us are using. Well, maybe we'll move to that. So
Yeah.
interesting to see, but we'll see where the conversation goes.
Exactly. And I remember when we moved into our ERP system, which was very expensive and strong, there were some things that we couldn't do with the system. So I had an Excel sheet where I would put in the information on how many crates I was shipping and how many, pallets and stuff. That Excel sheet will print me the document to release my goods. It will also print the manifest for the driver. So it was already pre-filled. So some stuff was a lot easier to do with Excel,
Yeah.
and it was probably the only way to do it either.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to modify the software to do that, it was so complicated and so expensive that Excel was the best solution for that particular thing, and it was literally something that you print and it's done. It was
It's
just
done.
as easy
Yeah.
to do. Yeah.
Efficiency is key.
Yep.
So our last article, which we've got only a couple minutes to go through, but it's a great deep dive article. This is from Retail Dive. You can pay or you can wait. How retailers are navigating a shipping crisis. So we'll share the article with you. It's a great. It really goes into a lot of the details around what's happening and who's doing what. But we're a little short on time, so we'll just quickly kind of go through. Are we paying, Emiliano, or are we waiting? What do you think?
This is a tough question because a lot of commitments have been made, and if you are trying to break contracts, that could cost you even more. So I would say look at everything that you have to make that decision with contracts and see if this is important, right? I also think, since we talked about supplier relationship, that maybe you could discuss this with your supplier. I mean, there might be a way to share some cost, right? That could be an idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tough one. I wouldn't be able to say go ahead and pay or go ahead and wait because some people will be completely against whatever I would say, depending on which way you go, right? I would say look at every situation,
Yeah.
and maybe do talk to your clients and see what
Yeah.
they could do. Maybe they can wait, and
Yeah.
maybe that might be okay.
Yeah.
right? But it really depends on the industry, depends on what you're doing. I mean, a lot of the consumer goods that we normally buy in Christmas time, right? They
Yeah.
are being shipped right now, or if
Hopefully.
anything, they probably shipped
They're trying to
before.
be shipped.
Yeah. So, that might depend on how well the season will go, right? From those consumer goods that are being purchased in that time. So I say, really look at
Assess,
every situation,
communicate.
assess and decide. Yes.
Yeah, 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 yeah. We've seen some interesting things. I mean, for us, we've even offered to switch Incoterms with our customers to say like, we this is what we can offer at, and now the price might have to increase. Do you want to just move your own freight with your own options? I think there's a lot of different strategies that people are using, but yeah, there's a few of us who are just paying to have it go through, and it keeps creeping up and up. You keep thinking it's like, well, it can't go higher than $29,400, and then it does, and it's it's a bit
Yeah. Yeah.
depressing, but
It's tough. It's tough for both importers and exporters right now with that with those tariffs, also with those charges, right?
yeah,
For freight. But at the same time, yes, maybe the Incoterm could be a way to decide if you want to pay your own. But that's only good if you're, placing new orders. When you
yeah,
have already orders in the system, that might be very, very difficult. So
it's true. It's true. Well, thank you, Emiliano, for joining. Again, it's like the fastest 30 minutes in supply chain here. So great chatting with you. And I know we're going to catch up later this month, so I'm excited about that. And so people can find you at LinkedIn. And if they're looking for some extra training, of course, check out Seneca College, because I did my training at Seneca College. So it's a big
yes,
school.
exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see everyone else on the Let's Talk Supply Chain back at Thoughts and Coffee next week. Take care,
Thank you so much.
everyone.
Bye bye.